for coming along. So tonight we're going to talk about the questions we get asked the most when people start researching how to become an agent. So with me tonight is Chris. Now, Chris is the education manager of the learning team, but Chris is also a selling agent and co-owner of a buyer's agency. And I'm Charlotte. I'm the CEO of the learning team and also a principal of a buyer's agency. So we're very active and current with what's happening in the industry. So let's just dive right in. We have put together the most commonly asked questions, and I've got my trusty list so I don't forget anything. But the aim of tonight is to also make sure your questions are answered. So if you do have a question, please pop it into the chat box and we'll aim to get through them all at the end if we haven't already covered it. All right, so Chris, welcome. I thought it might be good for our attendees to hear from you firstly about what a day in the life of an agent actually looks like before we dive into specific questions. Can you give us a breakdown of a general day as a selling agent?
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. So yeah, look, a typical day for me, honestly, like there's no 2 days that are exactly the same. And, you know, that's actually one of the things I really love about the job that I do. I work with another agent, so my mornings always start with firstly checking my emails and messages and responding to those. So I make sure I action those first. But then I sit down with my co-agent and have a chat about where we're at with each of our listed properties. We'll talk about, you know, what's going on in our pipeline, which means the leads we have of owners who are thinking about selling and how we'll touch base with them this week. We'll talk about what's coming up and strategize about how we're going to add to that pipeline as well. So that might be whether we're planning some door knocking activities, some cold calling, or just generally following up on leads that we've been generating over the last few weeks. But usually on, say, a Monday, for example, I spend most of my morning dealing with calls, texts, and emails from buyers that have come through our open homes from the weekend, and compiling all that information in to create a vendor feedback report. You know, I'm always making sure I'm allocating time to call the seller as well to discuss the feedback. And look, ideally, I'm starting to discuss offers and contracts with them as well. Obviously, that's the goal of what we want to do. So vendor feedback and then contracts is what I'm trying to aim for. Then the afternoon, I'm calling or emailing my pipeline. So this includes purchase anniversaries. So someone who bought from me, say, a year ago, I want to stay in touch with them as I want them to think about me when they go to sell in the future again. But here's the thing, you know, just on the Monday, for example, that's just gone, we received an offer on one of our properties that was subject to sale of the buyer's home, which means the buyer would need to sell their home to be able to complete the vendor's property sale. Now, it's quite a common situation we go through. However, it's also an opportunity. So in this case, I was able to lock in an appraisal that same day at the buyer's home, and we successfully secured the listing for their property. We had to move fast, obviously, because they were about to sign a Form 6 with another agent. You know, great news, right? But I also had to sort out the contract for my current listing and vendor. I had to get in touch with all the solicitors to review everything as well. So my prospecting for that day, you know, completely went out the window. I did make sure to still do all my pipeline calls that following day though, because consistency is the key that we're looking for here. That's the reality of it. You need to be flexible and adaptable depending on what comes through. So my whole day can shift. Some days I'm out, you know, doing appraisals, meeting with homeowners, giving them honest market advice. Other days I'm coordinating open homes, following up with buyers, negotiating offers. Some students ask, you know, is it competitive? Well, yeah, it can be. But I've found it's less about cutthroat competition and more about building your reputation and staying disciplined with your activities. The agents who last are the ones who genuinely help and stay consistent, even when the day doesn't go to plan.
Awesome. So well done on getting that listing. And for our listeners, a Form 6 is the agreement that you must have signed to actually represent a seller. So well done on getting that Form 6. That's always exciting. Chris, I just might say, can you try just doing your audio without your headphones? I am getting a lot of static come through when you're talking. If we could try that for a second.
How's that? Is that any better there, Charlotte?
Yeah, that is better. Yeah, awesome. I don't want our listeners to start hearing all that static. All right. So for me, like as a buyer's agent, I think our days are a little bit different. So I spend a lot of time researching properties on market and off market, which can be over a broad range of locations. Whereas a selling agent, they tend to remain in their designated patch. So I spend a lot of time talking with selling agents about properties as well, whereas you're talking probably more to owners or vendors as you would be representing them, what I particularly love. So for me, I find as a buyer's agent, I really love helping first home buyers. There's a particular excitement that first home buyers have, and just being a part of securing a property, getting them into that property, helping them secure a great deal, and then them picking up those keys. For me, that's what I find particularly exciting. Obviously, I love helping everyone, but that for me is the icing on the cake, is when it's their first home. Yeah, so we were just talking about what your favorite part of the, your day-to-day job is.
Oh yeah, so as for the RTO component side of it, and what I really love about what I do for a living is helping people connect and realize what they want to get out of their financial future based around real estate and their property. So I love connecting with a homeowner, discussing with them their potential, and getting them through to a sale so they can get into their future home. But it's also investors, Charlotte. Investors are, focused on what their end goal is, and to help them through that process to find the right property for them that ticks all their boxes. That's something that I really enjoy doing, helping those people connect to their real estate future.
Yeah, awesome. So with all of that knowledge that and experience that you have, like on a day-to-day process of being a real estate agent, how do you bring that to your role as the education manager with the learning team?
Yeah, so look, one of the things I really enjoy about our learning team, things that I get to do with our students, is particularly our Wednesday sessions that we do, our live webinars. What I really enjoy about those is I bring my real world experience as a selling agent and my past as a buyer's agent as well. And me and you run a buyer's agency together. So I'm heavily involved in that component and sharing with the students exactly how I go about, a normal day-to-day process. There's one thing getting all the data you get given to be a real estate agent in all the courses, but it's a whole nother thing trying to apply that knowledge out there in the real world. So I really enjoy getting that information I do. So it might be a CMA. I run through doing live CMAs on how I appraise a property. As a buyer's agent, I'll go through how, things that might affect a property, like water, overland flow or flood affecting of the property, and how that might affect the price. We also get some special guests on. So recently we had Ricky, who's a property manager, and she shared with us her experiences as a property manager, not just the good, but also how she handled some pretty complicated situations throughout that time. So I think those live webinars, and also we offer some face-to-face time. I think connecting with students that way really adds the value to them, because it shows them what being a real estate agent is really like.
Awesome. Yep. That's true. Like that, our students love those webinars. They get so much out of them. So we appreciate you bringing all that wisdom to the team. So we get a lot of questions about personality suiting the industry. So quite often the question is that they're concerned that they aren't extroverted or salesy enough. What are your thoughts on what types of personality that are in the industry?
Yeah, look, I've spoken to countless real estate agents over the years, and observed every sort of selling technique imaginable. You've got the over-the-top sales technique, you've got the compassionate listener, you've got the quiet type.
But here's what I've learned. There's no sort of one size fits all approach. You know, I once won a listing because the other agent was quite pushy and the seller didn't like that. But then that same selling technique, I lost to that same agent the following week. So the difference, I think, is knowing your audience. You know, what works best for me is adapting my approach based on what the person in front of me, you know, actually needs. You know, a first home buyer, you know, they might need for me to slow down and go through the process and help them understand the lingo. You know, that takes a bit more time and patience. But what I found really sets an agents apart is being genuinely honest and transparent. You know, I get reviews constantly mentioning that kind of aspect from both buyers and sellers. So you can apply that honest and transparent to both sides of the negotiation. And it becomes, you know, a foundation of how I operate. You know, combine that with that honesty with, you know, solid knowledge of your area, knowledge of your properties, knowledge of your processes as well, or not just your processes, but how like a contract process would work. And you've got a pretty powerful toolkit to use. The more answers that you can give your clients, the easier the whole process can become. You'll find your own rhythm as you work with other agents and see how they adapt. You know, whether you're introverted or extroverted really hardly matters. It's about being authentic and knowledgeable. You know, that's something we can definitely develop together throughout your time here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So for me, working with agents, more than vendors, I see a huge variety of personalities. Younger people that are a bit nervous, they're just starting out. And then there's obviously some more mature agents that have been in it for a while. They've all got their own unique style. But what I personally find is that the agents that are really responsive to your inquiries and feel the most genuine and easy to work with, for me, I'm a slightly introverted person myself, so I'm not looking for the most extroverted person to work with, but what I'm looking for is someone who's friendly, obviously, but more importantly, is knowledgeable about the property and genuinely interested in getting a deal done. And what I see from buyers is the same thing. So extroverted flashiness, yep, if you're like that, awesome, but it's definitely not required. But being genuine and relatable and providing good customer service, I think, is the key. So I feel like all personalities have got somewhere to be successful within the real estate industry if they just remember good customer service, no matter which part they're working in. And we teach these things in the course, obviously, and a part of that is obviously how to communicate effectively. On a side note, did everyone see that video of the agent abusing the neighbour for using the blower vac this week while he was doing an inspection next door? Give us a thumbs up if you saw that. He ended up ruining quite a long career because he thought it was okay to abuse the neighbour. Not only did he manage to get famous on social media for all the wrong reasons, he lost his job. He had to apologise, and the agency had to apologise. So it's not a good look. So we definitely don't teach you to be that guy. Building a successful career in real estate is about building relationships, and that comes down to good communication.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, that one from that agent, Charlotte. But so let's talk about the course itself and what is required to get into the industry.
Yep. Excellent. So yeah, this is very important to understand, as there's different avenues depending on which path you want to travel. The Office of Fair Trading sets out the educational requirements, but all of the education is based on CPP 41419 Certificate 4 in Real Estate Practice. So that's the full qualification. And the Office of Fair Trading has split it into two different sections. So without using too much jargon that causes people to zone out, and we want to keep it simple for everyone, the Office of Fair Trading has set out that the guidelines that if you're looking to work in an agency, either as a property manager, selling agent or buyer's agent, you only need to complete 12 units out of the full Certificate 4, and then you can apply for your registration. Then, if you wish to own an agency or perhaps work as an independent contractor within the agency, that's when you then need to have a full license. So this requires the full Certificate 4 in real estate practice, plus an additional extra unit of competency, that they've also included. So here at the learning team, we've just broken this down into 2 courses, either the sales associate course to get your registration or the full certificate 4 course, which includes that extra unit as well to get your license. So that's the nuts and bolts about the Office of Fair Trading course requirements. But more specifically, how we operate as a training organisation is that we have recognised that online learning can have some very convenient benefits, but it's not always easy to study at home without the face-to-face support. So we've specifically designed our course so that you have the flexibility to study when it suits you online and the added bonus of one-on-one sessions with your trainer. There's an easy booking calendar that students use. So you just book the time that suits, add in a note what you require from the session, and then you can have a video chat to resolve any questions about the content or assessment with the course, or if you just need some practice time. But not only that, each month we run the webinar, as you were mentioning before, so that all students can attend to learn about the new things regarding real estate, as well as a special guest occasionally, but it brings in all of that learning into practicality and what it means. And these are recorded so that if you miss one, you can always catch up at some point. And all the previous recordings are also available. So it's quite a library of resources building there for students to take advantage of, because something that we identified is that whilst there is specific things you need to learn for the qualification, there are a million other things that come from experience. So we put that together so you get the best of both worlds to ensure that you hit the ground running feeling confident once you've completed your course, because the course is just the first step. Assessments are online. They're easy to follow. Practical assessments are held through video or the trainer booking system. So that's how the course works.
Yeah, so plenty of options there, Charlotte. So another question we have here is, do you need any previous experience to become a real estate agent?
No, you don't need any real estate experience. If you start with a sales associate course, you get the fundamental training, and then as you work in an agency, you develop more experience. But there are no actual specific prerequisites. Okay,
but so how long does it take to get qualified and start working in the industry?
Yeah, so that's also another question we always get asked. How long does it take? Being that it's self-paced online, we can't give you a specific, it's only going to take you 2 weeks or something like that. We don't know, because it's up to you to self-manage your time. However, we allow 6 months for the sales associate course and 12 months for the full certificate, which is more than enough time to work through those units if you stay consistent. All right, so financial questions. Let's jump into the financial side of things, because this is one thing that everybody wants to know. So Chris, if you could tell us about some earning structures that agencies can have and some earning potentials.
Yeah, so there are a few different ways agents can earn money in the industry. When you first start out, the most common agreement is a straight out salary. That's typically where most people begin. From there, you often transition into a salary plus commission sort of structure. So, for example, you might be on a $60,000 base salary, and once you bring in, say, $25,000 in commissions to the office in a quarter, anything you earn beyond that gets you a commission split, say, of 12%. The next phase is moving into what's sort of known as a comms only or commission only position. In this setup, you might charge a seller, say, $20,000 as part of a property transaction, and your agency takes a split of that. So you'd receive, say, a 65% of that as your payment. As you can imagine, the earnings with this one is a lot higher and more significant. And it doesn't stop there. As you sort of progress in the industry, build your reputation, start securing more listings, you gain more negotiating power. That 65% split might become a 70, then 75, and so on. Essentially, the more value you can bring, the more you can negotiate the terms in your favor. But Charlotte, how about you explain some of the upfront costs to expect as an agent?
Yep, that's always the next question. What's it going to cost me? Well, firstly, you're going to have your course fees, obviously, and depending on which course you choose, this can vary, but once you have completed your course, then you also need to prepare for the fact that you need to register or license with the Office of Fair Trading. They have some different options, but they offer a 1 year or 3 year option, and you can find their full list of their fees on their website. But for 1 year registration, it's currently $388 per year, or a full license is $1,653.50 for 1 year. So quite a significant difference between the two, because there's obviously greater differences in what each of those provide. And then you also need to think about CPD, which is your continuing professional development. All agents are required to complete 2 CPD sessions each year. And this is whether you have a 1 year or a 3 year license. It still needs to be completed each 12 months. And the costs vary on these sessions, again, depending on which one you choose, but they can start from $100 and then go up from there. So there's definitely more costs after your course fee. So you just need to be prepared for those. Let's to the questions that we might have in the chat box. Let's just take a quick look. I will just change my screen because I wanted to just demonstrate the course platform that the students use to learn. I think this is helpful to see how easy it is to navigate. So let's just have a look at that. Just give me a second. And so this is, if everyone can see that, the home page. Now, this is actually our trainer view, but this is what students also see. So you've got your announcements. So if we've got something that we need to let everyone know about, we put an announcement up here, and you also get a notification in your email about that. We have our resource library where we put all of the documents and things that you need, easy to find. And then at the bottom, you'll see your courses, which you can then just jump into and work your way through. They're easy to navigate. As you can see, there's a menu down the side. You just click on where you're up to, read through. And when you get to the bottom, you can see your assessments are down there, and you can attempt your assessments. So nice and easy to navigate and understand where everything is. You can go backwards and forwards if you need to touch on another subject again, if you get to a question that you don't quite remember what that was about. So that's all in there for the students. And then we've also got our YouTube page where there's lots of videos there. So we've got, reviews, we've got how to choose your CPD, how to complete an enrolment form, all that type of stuff. Anything that's helpful, we aim to put it into YouTube. I think for me, something that people probably don't always know about me, but I've worked in RTOs for like over 15 years. And so I know the industry inside out. And as you and I both know, we also have to do our CPD. So we are also training in other RTOs, and that also gives us lots of ideas on how to make sure that our course is excellent and people can enjoy it. So, I love real estate, but I also particularly love education, making sure that people are really enjoying what they're learning. So that's what I hope people get out of our course. All right, so it doesn't look like any more questions have come in. So hopefully that's a sign that we've covered everything. So that's the end of the session. Thank you to everyone for attending. That's our contact details. We're happy to talk to anyone about anything.
Perfect. Bye.
Awesome, thanks, Chris. Bye now.